Okay, welcome everyone again to Tech Time. We have episode two. We're going to be talking about service calls today. This is a really important topic that's happening right now as mosquito pressure is really starting to rise around the country. So really excited to have Parker and Joe talk to you about this. Guys, why do you think that this is an important topic?
Oh, it's a
I
great
think
question.
sorry to cut you off there, Parker. Um, it's huge. I think this one area alone made me the technician that I became. Um, yeah, you could be pissed that you got it or you're getting service calls, but also look at it as an opportunity. If the customer's calling and they're getting bit, and multiple people, you're going to have that. You have a lot of rain, you get super, hot heat. It's an opportunity because if they're getting bit, their neighbors are getting bit. You know, you're going to get increased sales from this as well. But it's a huge topic, and it kind of made me who the person I am today, treating and how I train our techs. So it's a big deal.
Yeah, I would add on to that it's like service calls, like they're a reality of spraying. You're gonna get them, so don't take them personally. Again, like you said, treat them as opportunities to learn and to either get more sales or just grow your experience. I think like you said as well, it really went a long way into helping me. If you can understand like what's causing service calls, it's gonna help you prevent them in the first place. So service calls are good because they help you learn from mistakes. They help you kind of, all right, I got to reapproach this and I got to relook at it a little bit, and it forces you to kind of expand your tool set a little bit. So I think they're very useful.
Yeah, service calls are they're an opportunity. I've heard a handful of people say, Joe, to your point, one like their neighbors are getting bit too. Like we should definitely be doing some field marketing around there. Then also as a technician, like wow, what an opportunity to attack a problem that has given you challenges in the past and improve and potentially eliminate that problem moving forward. There's just so many things that technicians see in their day-to-day life. Talk us through the process. What does a service call look like? How do you do it right?
Yeah. So I mean, my first step is when I get there is I do kind of walk the property. It depends on if it was mine or if I'm going out for someone else's. But I try to I look around the property, kind of see what's going on. I do always either if it was another tech, I'll call them and see like what they do. But if it's me, obviously I know what I'm doing. But I always call the homeowner and I just kind of touch base with them. It shows that you care and that you're like, I'm not just showing up to do the same thing again. So ask some questions like, where are you guys spending time? Where are you noticing the mosquitoes? Just a few questions like that usually are like will give you the answer. Like if they're like, oh, we're getting great results up by our deck, but I'm noticing a ton when we're out on our dock. Well, then that's a point for you to educate them, and be like, there's nothing to spray out by your dock, so you're probably going to have issues down there because we're not able to get around that. And so then it's just setting expectations and educating them. But yeah, you just those few questions will tell you, all right, they're having issues over there, so I should got to put more product over there. So
Yeah, yeah. Just to back off of that. Basically, exactly what you said. I probably would have said that word for word. You have to have a system in place. So, and that starts with the office, the office staff. Have a set of questions that you ask them and make them count. Just like Parker said, where are you getting bit? What time of day? If they're getting bit in the morning around New Jersey, or in the middle of the day, we know immediately that's probably Asian tiger mosquitoes. We also know from education that where are they going to hang out the most? We get a lot of corrugated downspouts here. As soon as I get somebody that's getting bit in the morning, we'll pull up the satellite image of the house. We'll look at properties around them. You know, but you also want to set the expectations with the customer, like Parker said. If the property is 100% grass, before I even treat it for the first time, I'm knocking on the door and I'm letting them know, look, you're probably going to get some relief, but you have no foliage, you have no trees, shrubs for the mosquitoes to actually land on to pick up our product. Yeah, they might land in the grass temporarily, but that's not where they're going to harbor. So I set those expectations immediately, which does again involve you to get out of your comfort zone a little bit and talk to that customer. But the office is going to handle a lot of that load. They're going to get the questions, they're going to get where they were getting bid, if it's on the deck. it leads to, you know, basically finding it. You're like a detective. If you're getting bit in one side of your yard, there's most likely a water issue there. You know, and I'm not only just looking at their property, I'm looking at neighboring properties. Do they have an unopened pool? Are their gutters clogged? Do they have tires up against the fence? Um, there's a lot of ways to approach it. You know, our biggest issues here would probably be gutters. This is one that most people are going to overlook, but we have a lot of like galvanized steel poles for fencing. 9 times out of 10, when you can't find anything there, it's going to be an uncapped pole. And if you put a little rock or something in there, or some like Alta said, you're going to hear it. You're going to hear that water. It's going to be splashing. So those are all things that I didn't learn in 1 year. You know, that's stuff that it took maybe multiple service calls to go back and actually look at those little teeny details, you know. It doesn't take much water at all, you know, to get a full-blown mosquito from eggs. So you want to think outside of the box, but you know, the gutters, the uncapped holes, hidden ground drains, um, you know, and basically neighboring issues. Those are kind of our number one, you know, issue that we're dealing with over here. But it's going to be different everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's important to learn when you're on site. That's why it's important to go out there and talk to the customer. You mentioned setting expectations, under promise and over deliver.
Mhm.
Is such an important piece because the expectations that we set with the customer from when they come on to the service to when we talk to them about the service call, they remember those things. And if we can make sure to set the right expectations, they're going to have a great experience, which is really awesome. Let's shift a little bit and talk about products. So you've gone out and done a service. Now you're out there to do a service call. How are your products changing when you go out to do a service call?
Yeah, I always update MTPB because they're having issues. So like you want to ensure that like after that treatment that you're making some kind of difference. So I up the MTPB. I add the Perm 10 to get that immediate knockdown for them. Yes, you want to always make an adjustment, whether it be the recipe or like what you're doing. I mean, always adjust the recipe, but sometimes you even got to adjust your treatment as well. I can give an example of that too, where there was this one property where I was spraying and I kept getting a service call because they were getting bit by their fire pit. And I went out there, I talked to the guy, and I found out that they had like a little trail around the corner of their tree line that led to a second fire pit. And so I was spraying them on the wrong fire pit. So just a small adjustment, getting around that one, fixed it. So that's another reason why it's important to talk to them because you don't know everything that's going on in their yard. So yeah, have that conversation, up the percentage of the MTVB and add the Perm 10 and then just make whatever adjustments that you need. And I think it's usually a good starting point.
Exactly. I mean, you got to trust the products, they work. It's very easy, especially when I was starting out, to be like, maybe the mosquitoes are becoming immune to what we're using. You know, it just kind of jumps into your head. It takes a very, very long time for that to happen. And with Mosquito Shield, us constantly adding things in, like updating, you know, from our garlic blend to the MTPB, that changes everything, you know. So those small little changes really do keep the mosquitoes from becoming immune to what we're using. So that's 9 times out of 10 not the problem. Um, you know, there are adjustments you can do with the products. You can follow those recipes more, you know, like people have always told me you can't kill them twice. So you going above the limit on your products isn't going to help the situation. It can actually make it worse. But there are things that you can do. You know, you might have to put it out a little bit heavier. I've found that on properties where they're like, it's good, but I'm still getting a couple. And I spray it a little bit heavier and it solves the issue. Other times we're increasing our MTPB, you know, from 1.5 to 3. You know, if that makes a change, sometimes we'll go a little bit higher. You need to know your products and you need to read these labels because they're going to tell you what you can use, what you can increase it to. You know, for instance, Nygaard, we usually use it 3 to 4 milliliters. You can use that up to like 8. You know, it's on that label. And sometimes that's all it takes, but just don't go right away and start increasing things. It doesn't make the situation better. You know, that's why we're looking for those water issues. We're looking for neighboring issues, things like that.
Yeah, like we said there, right? Trust the product and know the label. The label is the law. That's just the way it goes in the US. Things like NiGuard have residual effect, right? Using them over and over again on a treatment is not adding any more efficacy. So thinking about where people spend their time, where mosquitoes spend their time, and talking to your customers are all like those are the top things to do. So say you guys have been out maybe to a property, and how do you get better at service calls as a skill? Do you guys have any tips for folks?
Yeah, the job itself is very repetitive and like we touch base on it, like having good habits and stuff like that. But so you can get into a very autopilot kind of mode when you're treating. And so just when you're doing a service call, turn that off. Be very conscious about what you're doing. Be more deliberate with it. Like if you're adding the extra products. So just take the time to do it right. Don't just like do what you did last time. So make some sort of adjustment. And then I always next time I go out, if I see that customer again, I ask them how that spray went, then I get that feedback and I kind of know, okay, that worked. So then I can start applying that to other things as well. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we do things like spot checking to every technician, including the technicians that do the spot checking. They get spot checked as well, which basically just means we go out and we look at how they treat. It might be one property, it might be three different properties. But we keep it uniform. Nobody's seniority gets them out of that. That's just part of it. But if we notice, okay, we're getting a huge increase of service calls on one particular person, you know, it might just take a little bit of help. I mean, I used to screw up all the time when it came to spraying, and I would have my old boss come out and I'd turn around and he was just there, but he would give me pointers and, you forget, he's like, you're walking underneath this canopy and you're hitting this stuff, but you're not hitting any of the overhanging, actual canopy. And it was just a bad habit I got into. So once it was brought to my attention, you can get better at that. But again, it's not the end of the world if you miss something. I have treated a property for half a year and then found that they have a massive ground drain that was hidden. So don't beat yourself up over it, but remember that. Keep that in your head, build off of it. You'll find water issues in areas you never expected.
Yeah, all great advice. If you guys could leave everyone watching with one takeaway, if they're going to take one thing away, what would that be?
Don't make the same mistakes. Like I said, make an adjustment. Don't be afraid to put in the grass. We have a lot of guys where it's like they think that you can only spray the grass for ticks, but if someone's having issues, put a little extra in the grass for mosquito too. Just get some extra scent blocking down. So yeah, don't make an adjustment. Don't be afraid to try things. And then obviously make sure you're reading those and understanding those labels.
Yeah, I think I would leave you with saying, as I always do in the corporate trainings, keep your head on a swivel. It doesn't mean just focusing directly on that customer. I'm looking around everywhere, neighboring properties. I'm looking up, I'm looking down. You should be, so you don't trip. But yeah, just use those as learning opportunities, and keep it in your mind. Use your larvicides. Larvicides work. I know a lot of people don't use them, but use them. Yeah, it's you get better at this. I'll put it that way. Okay. It's not going to happen overnight, but just keep those things in the back of your mind so that when you approach a different property, you're like, I see these uncapped holes over here. It's just kind of embedded in you.
Yeah, it's a continuous process of improvement, which is fun. Like you get to say, wow, I've solved these things. Like what's next? And I think this is great advice for everyone. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We've had a lot of fun making all these episodes. Up next, we have knowing your products and mixing, which I think will in part really be similar to what we've been talking about in service calls and making sure you guys are being as efficient as possible with your day and know when to use the right products. We'll catch you on the next one. Thanks, everybody.